Hello and welcome. As you would have seen from the title of this video, we're going to have a talk about Australian knife import regulations, and finally we've actually got some good news on the topic, and doesn't that make a change? What's happened is the regulation has come into force. It's been registered on the 14th of December 2015, so it is now in force, and it's this one here. I'll show you the title of the regulation. You can read that for yourself, I won't read it to you. Like most pieces of legislation, it's pretty hard going. This thing is, a document referring to another piece of regulation. So it's pretty vague in places, to be perfectly honest with you. Of more use to us, we will look at this briefly, but of more use to us will be this document, which I will also be discussing with you on the video, which is an explanatory notice from Australian Customs relating to the change in the regulation. So what's going to happen is we're going to change the camera angle, put these in front of the camera, and we'll discuss the points in them. It should be a relatively short video. We'll just have a few discussion points and point out what the changes are and what it means to us here in Australia. Basically what it means is we finally had a bit of common sense come in. Who would have thought that possible, eh? I have no idea why this has happened. I don't know the background of it. I'm not going to complain about it though. Let's just hope it stays that way. So let's change the camera angle and let's get into this thing and have a bit of a look. Stick with me. I know legislation and stuff can be boring, but if you want to know what's going on, this is a bit of knowledge. I'll also provide some links down below to where you can go and see these documents and read them for yourselves, and I recommend you do that. Don't take my word for anything. Get your own knowledge, make sure you know what you're talking about. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so let's have a look at this document. This is the Department of Immigration and Border Protection Notice, number 2015/40. For those interested, again, there'll be a link down below so you guys can go and look at this for yourselves. It basically talks here about the changes of these regulations are mostly delegatory and to improve the defence and law enforcement industry's ability to source goods, etc. It's fairly dry and fairly boring. It talks here about some stuff that doesn't really affect knife imports. If you were going to import military vehicles, aircraft, vessels, battle tanks, you might need to read this part, but I'm not looking to import a battle tank anytime soon, so I'm going to leave that go. The important part is on the back here, and I've highlighted this for us. Flipper knives. Now, most of you guys will be familiar with flipper knives. I don't have one down here to show you, but they tend to have a little extension on the knife up here, and you flick that back with thumb or forefinger, whatever, and the knife flicks out. I'm sure you guys, if you're watching this video, you know what a flipper knife is. They were a restricted import. They now have been removed from import control under item 14 of Schedule 13. We'll come back to that bit of rubbish later. The important part is flipper knives are no longer a controlled import or restricted import, which means you can import them, and retailers, importers can bring them in and sell them in this country. There's a dot point under that that's really important. The control remains on automatic and assisted opening knives, i.e. switchbacks and flick knives. Now, it's really important that you understand what that means. It's talking about automatic knives, so if you, for example, have a knife where you push a button and the blade springs out, or an out the front type knife or anything like that, that is an automatic opening knife. That is still a restricted import. In other words, it is unlawful to try and import one into this country without a permit, which you probably won't get from your state police. Assisted opening knives, similar idea, is where there is usually a spring operated type mechanism. You manually flick it and then the spring takes over once you pass the detent and opens the blade. For obvious reasons, I don't have one to show you, but you guys will know what they are. Do not try and bring either of those type of items into the country. They are still a restricted import. Now, the best part, the part that I love, because I'm not really into flipper knives, but I do like folding knives, one hand opening, is this bit right here. The controls on single hand opening knives and parts for single hand opening knives have been removed. So in other words, last year's satanic weapon, which we couldn't have because they were horribly dangerous, are now allowed to be imported. Common sense has prevailed. Below it says, this allows importers to import single-handed opening knives that can be opened by gravity, inertia, or centrifugal force. I love the wording. It was actually the very wording they used to explain why they were so dangerous and had to be banned, but we won't go there. And this is my favourite part. These knives have many lawful uses, including for use in outdoor recreational activities such as camping, mountaineering and hiking. I'm almost overwhelmed to have a sarcastic word here, but yeah, of course they have many lawful uses. This should come as no great surprise. They are Up until now they've been this demonised object. Why the sudden change? I simply have no idea. Maybe the powers that be have noticed that in most crimes, such as the ones I just heard about on the news tonight in Sydney, a store hold-up, a person used a 10-inch kitchen knife. Maybe they've realised that terrorists tend to use things like AK-47s and not folding knives. I don't know. Anyway, it's common sense, and I guess we should just accept it and be grateful that it's happened. So, to cut a long story short, you can now import one-hand opening knives, including flipper knives, which previously you were not allowed to import. You cannot and should not attempt to import automatic opening or spring assist opening knives. I will provide a link to this document too. This is the actual change to the regulation. There's not much to see in this, but it referenced those schedules there before, and I will show it just for the sake of being complete. It talks here about omitting the words assisted opening knives or flipper knives and substitute assisted opening knives. So in effect, it's legally saying we've just taken the words flipper knives out. So in other words, assisted opening knives, as we've discussed, are still restricted, but flipper knives no longer are. This part down here where it talks about repeal the items, well, you don't know what the items are, but take my word for it, it was where it had reference to one-hand opening knives. So this is the legislative support for that explanatory note, if you like. Well, the explanatory note explains the legislation. So what does this mean to us? Well, it means, for example, a mini griptilian such as this, you can bring that in. Rat ones, go for it. Love my rat one. Spydercos, yep, they're back on the table. We can have them again. What else? Cold steels. Yeah, you can bring them in from that one. And now, it doesn't talk about blade size, it's worth noting. So right up to this monster here, it's a one-hand opener. They're all legal again. It's hard to believe, to be honest. I never thought I'd be making this video, but I am. Alright, some things that need to be said here to make sure that everyone's really clear. This is not open slaver on knives, folks. There are still many knives that you cannot bring in. And again, go back to my previous videos on the topic, and I thank all of those of you who've watched them and commented on them. They're still valid with the exception of what we just talked about, one-hand opener and flippers. For example, restricted knives still include balisongs, which are otherwise known as butterfly knives, daggers, any double-edged blades, trench knives. Now, trench knives are generally a fixed blade. They have usually a metal thing coming around here. They're based on a World War I design. They are restricted, as are push knives. Push knives, I don't have one to show you, but the handle is at 90 degrees to the blade. They are a restricted import. Don't bring them in. And we've already talked about autos and assisted openings far too much. So it's good news. You can probably get these from Australian retailers shortly. I do know of at least one retailer who's doing pre-orders, so he's obviously looking to import some stuff in. And of course you can import them yourself. My favourite import place was the US and probably still will be. Unfortunately, the exchange rate now is rubbish. We're down in the low 70 cents, but so be it. If you can make it worth your while for the freight, go for it. What else should we say? Really important point, and I did notice that on my previous videos, whilst I've tried to get this across, people are still confused by it. Please understand that this does not in any way change or affect knife carry laws in the state in which you live. This is a federal or Commonwealth government thing which talks about the import of these knives. In the most places in Australia, if not all places in Australia, it would probably still not be legal without a valid reason or excuse to carry a knife such as this. So it is important to understand import laws are completely different to carry laws, which vary state to state in this country and are enforced, of course, by the state police. So I'd hate for anyone to go away from this video thinking, oh yeah, we can import these now, I can carry them around. Do your own research. My own state of Queensland, I do have a video on Queensland knife laws on my channel. For those of you in Queensland, all that information is still completely correct and valid to the best of my knowledge. Alright, that will do us. As I say, good news, unexpectedly good news, so a Christmas present for us. Let's see how long it lasts for. Maybe we should import them before the insane people get back in charge and change it all back. Alright, best wishes for you all. Thanks for those who've supported the channel during the year. I know I haven't put many videos out. I'll try and remedy that in the new year, but unfortunately life's become increasingly busy. So again, Happy New Year and have a great silly season. Bye for now.